Good evening from Johannesburg. I'm Carl Niehaus. This is Let's Have It Out. Since the 54th National Conference of the ANC and the election of an ANC leadership collective that represented both factions or groupings of the ANC, there has been much talk in the party about unity. And quite correctly, it is often pointed out that the source of the pervasive strength of the ANC since its formation was its much lauded unity in diversity. But what does this call for unity really entail? Does it still mean unity in diversity? Does it allow those who didn't back Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa as the president of the ANC to still have their place under the ANC sun, so to speak? Or has a sense of triumphalism set in that marginalizes and persecutes those who supported Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma? Or is there in fact none of this, and is there simply just a division between different political ideals and those who seem to be closer to the ideal of fighting white monopoly capital than others? Now, this past weekend, two very important ANC provincial conferences took place, where new executives were elected and policy resolutions adopted. The official line from the ANC is that these conferences in Gauteng and KZN, respectively, were a resounding success and indicate a growing sense of unity and purpose in the ANC. But is this really the full story? This is Let's Have It Out. You can have your say, and here's how.
Tweet us at ENCA using the hashtag LHIO. Call us on 011-759-6340 or send us a WhatsApp or WhatsApp video on 082-884-6370. And make sure those videos are no longer than 30 seconds, please.
My guest tonight to help me shed light on some of these very vexing questions is an ANC NEC member and Member of Parliament, Ms. Nocawe Mafu, who was also a former Deputy General Secretary of the ANC Women's League. Nocawe, yes. It is good to have you here.
Thank you, Carl, and good evening to the viewers at home.
But as I've said to you at the beginning, before we started here, I have no intention to be soft tonight, because I know that you as an ANC comrade has the strength and the ability to face the difficult questions.
Thank you. I didn't even know that you could be soft. I always thought you are a very hard person.
Well, thank you. You know, I have in particular wanted you to come because you are the NEC convener for the ANC with regards to KwaZulu-Natal.
Yes.
And as we know, KwaZulu-Natal went through a rather difficult period because the NEC, PEC in fact, of KwaZulu-Natal was disbanded, and then eventually a provincial task team was appointed to run the affairs of KZN. Now we've had a conference, and that conference elected a new leadership. There's some interesting things about that leadership that I wanted to ask you tonight. One of the questions that came up for me was, how has it come that we have a PEC in KwaZulu-Natal that is entirely black and African, without any members from the minorities? Is it that we say that we work for unity on an ideological basis, but that the minority question and the national question is no longer that critical for us with regards to unity? And how can this particular democratic process that led to those elections impact on how we are going to conduct ourselves for the upcoming national and provincial elections next year?
Thank you, Carl. Actually, that's a very critical question, particularly for the province of KwaZulu-Natal. As everybody knows, that KwaZulu-Natal has got a large number of the Indian community. And it has always been, the ANC has always shown in its structures previously the representation of the Indian community in that provincial executive committee. And it's true that for the first time this has not happened in this PEC that has come out from the last weekend. But let's look at it this way. One, the outcome of a conference is always the will of the branches of the African National Congress. Now, the branches of the African National Congress have elected a leadership, and this leadership is predominantly Africans, as you can put it. Now, what then do we do as the African National Congress? Because, as you put it clearly, the ANC is facing elections in the very near future. And when we go out to campaign, it is important for us that we actually are able to attract everybody, to be able to identify with the African National Congress.
Can I just interrupt you there? Because especially you as someone who comes from the ANC Women's League.
Yes.
With regards to this issue of inclusivity, weren't you concerned that on the top officials of the PEC, there's only one woman, and that the representation of women, at least on the top leadership, seems to be rather thin?
Yes, yes, it's a very serious concern, and it looks like it's becoming a trend in the leadership of the African National Congress in provinces, that now you have less women in the officials. And this is something that as women in the ANC, we should look at and discuss it. But you will remember, Carl, I think you were there at the conference. There were 2 women that were fielded in the top 5 of KwaZulu-Natal. There was somebody who was fielded for the deputy secretary position. And there was also somebody who was contested, who was not contested for treasury. So there were 2 women that were fielded. But unfortunately, the democratic process of the branches then decided that only 1 woman will sit in that top 5. But what we have done then, since then, is to make sure that the 50% representation of women in that structure is met. When we then looked at the additional members, we then made sure that out of that 30 of additional members, 17 is women, and then add 1 from the top 5. So you've got 18 women in that structure, even though you've got only 1 in the top 5. But in terms of the structure inclusivity, you've got 18 women there. We were not compromising on that one, because that's an ANC policy.
That's good. And I want to come back to another question regarding the makeup of the provincial executive. But we first have to go for a commercial break.
Okay.
Just to have a quick look at the commercial break, and then we come back, and then I'm going to ask you that question.
Okay. Thank you.